Hi, this is Mr. Cinema Junkie with my video entry to FREDIOSAR'S 200 sub contest. I think it was a little less than 200 subs when she started the contest. I think it's crossed that line by now, so congratulations. She had asked for us to talk about our favorite sci-fi movies. I am not the biggest sci-fi fan out there. In fact, I'm kind of like, I could take or leave sci-fi, really. But there are some really cool sci-fi titles, and that can't be denied. I could probably list maybe 10 or 15 that I'm deeply into, but I narrowed it down to 2, and the reason I picked 2 was because one in my book is straight science fiction, and the other one can go either way, although there is a very strong sci-fi element to it, and it cannot be denied or ignored. So let me start with the first one. First off, I do not own this movie, and I really should own it. I want to start working on a classics section of my movie collection. The old black and whites, or even the color ones from earlier years. This one is a definite classic. It was actually remade later on in the 80s, and the remake was very good. It was an extremely good remake, but it left out certain elements that made the original so cool and so awesome. The movie I'm speaking of is The Fly. This is the original 50s thriller. I believe it was in 1958. And it starred Vincent Price. I don't know who doesn't know the story of this. A scientist is working on matter movement, moving things, and he somehow gets his DNA spliced with the flies. The thing with the 1980s remake is that he absorbs the DNA of the fly and comes out and starts to mutate into a fly-like creature, or a new life form of sorts. He has traits that the fly has, but he becomes his own deal. Whereas the 50s one, the guy actually has a hand and a head like a fly, which was, I'm sure, pretty unsettling at that time, back in the 50s. And to this day, it's still very effective. They use some like kaleidoscope lenses, so he's looking through like multi-lensed eyes and sees like 8 or 9 of everybody, and that was pretty cool. But the thing that they left out of the remake, which I thought was just the deal seller, was the little half human, half fly creature. See, in the remake, it's kind of like he absorbed the fly's DNA, and the fly was no more. As far as I remember, I don't remember ever seeing the fly ever again. But in the original, they're trying to find a way so that they can change him back. So they have to find the fly that morphed with his DNA. So you have a man walking around with a big fly head and a fly hand. And then later on, you find the little tiny fly, which has half of a human body, and it's really creepy. It's super, super creepy. If you've never seen the scene, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere if you just Google it. In fact, I'll look for it and I'll put a link below. But it's the eeriest, creepiest scene in just about any movie. If I had to put a top 5 list of creepiest and eeriest scenes ever in any movie, that would probably rank right up there at the top of that 5. I'd say, if not number 1, definitely 2 or 3. It's one of those things you can't get out of your head after you see it. It's so eerie, you know. The poor thing's screaming for help because it's caught in a web, and the spider is coming to kill it, and he's screaming, you know. And then oh man, it was good. It was really good. I'm over here sounding like a small child. It was scary, mommy. But anyways, yes, that's my top pick for best sci-fi picture. But I also wanted to include this title because I am by trade a horror fan. But this one had strong sci-fi elements to it. And I guess it's like, let's call it the common ground. It's like when Cubs fans and Sox fans can't get along, but when football season comes around, they all root for the Bears. They find common ground. Well, that's kind of what the sci-fi and the horror fans do when it comes to this movie. At least I would like to think so. Call it the Peacemaker. It's Jason X. Or Jason 10, but Jason X. Jason X sounds like he was a civil rights leader for slashers. He has a dream. Anyways, yeah, I mean, check out the stuff, the storyline in the background, and tell me this doesn't sound like something out of a sci-fi movie. Okay, it describes, of course, Jason. You know Jason from the Friday the 13th series. But it says, if you're looking for terror, here comes a perfect 10. In the year 2455. The year 2455. Dig that. On a routine training mission, a team of students is about to learn a terrifying lesson. I want you to know that the team of students that's on a training mission, they land on Earth, which is uninhabitable now. And they're in a spaceship. And they go out on a little, like a field trip of uninhabitable Earth. And they're picking up little bits and pieces of samples of stuff. And that's when they find the body of Jason and one of his victims. I believe they're frozen, preserved. They take them onto the ship to examine them, to study them. Anyways, through the years, Jason Voorhees has claimed over 200 victims. Now the legendary killer from Crystal Lake is back, hurtling through space and hunting new prey. Jason X is a nerve-shredding thriller loaded with spectacular special effects, high-tech weapons, and new ways to die. It ranks right up there with movies like Aliens, as far as the sci-fi element goes. Yeah, you got nanobots that are repairing him and make him into the Uber Jason with his robotic-looking face. You have high-tech gadgetry. They still use archaic things like liquid nitrogen, but it's definitely has its nod in the sci-fi world. It even has a holodeck, for crying out loud, that takes him back to 1980s Crystal Lake, where he thinks he's back in the woods. So a holodeck, okay, come on, it's like Star Trek. So yeah, it's definitely got its hand in the sci-fi pot there, and it's an enjoyable movie. It's a lot of fun. It's it's one of those movies where you watch it and you just got to have fun with it. Because I know there were a lot of moans and groans about that movie from the horror community, but I think that's why, because it kind of had the whole sci-fi thing going. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a blast. So those are my 2 mentions for favorite sci-fi movies, and I wish you plenty more subscribers, and thanks for the opportunity to enter, and I wish everybody else good luck in the contest.